Warriors own 2 lottery picks with the number 7 and 14 in this year's draft. It's not often an NBA team in that situation can call itself a championship contender like the Warriors are. Zach, how should Golden State approach this draft in terms of trading or making the picks?
Well, Steph Curry reminded everyone, I'm still Steph Curry. I'm still the guy. And Klay Thompson is coming back, and I think it behooves you to say we got to win right now. We owe it to Steph Curry to try to win right now. So that means you look around. What can I get for 7, 14, Wiseman if it gets to that? The problem is I'm not sure what veteran is out there for them, and if they can't find anything, guess what you do? Take players who are young but might be able to play in a finals game next year.
What do you think, Chris?
I think this is the dream position if you're an organization and a GM. They've got high picks. I truly believe in Wiseman. All he has to do is set screens for Klay and Steph and roll, and he'll be open all next season. They have a very dynamic group of young players. They just have to really enjoy the situation that they're in right now. I would say that they need to upgrade on the wings for that 3 and D position. But if they can find someone in the draft to fit that, great. If they can package it up, they're in the driver's seat.
I'm definitely on Steph timeline watch as opposed to development watch. That's just my personal opinion. I'm still here with Chris Bosh, Zach Lowe, and let's fire up that coaching carousel. Let's go, yeah. This is the most exciting thing that happens at Baggage Claim, because when I go to Baggage Claim, none of these people are here, and I would be much happier if these were my friends. All right, here is Rick Carlisle talking about his expectations for his new Pacers position.
Whatever players are presented to me by my management or my ownership or, however those things go, I really take a great deal of pride and love the challenge of taking that group and molding that group into the right kind of system. We're going to make a heavy emphasis on getting better defensively. And finding ways to create as many small edges as we can. We need to get back in the playoffs, and we need to find a way to win in the playoffs. I think it's pretty clear that that's what the mandate is.
All right, so Zach, let's start with you. Are those fair expectations?
They're fair expectations, but, it's not going to be that easy. You think the East is easy, but who in the top 8 is like a guarantee to fall out next season? Nobody. You got Chicago, they're going for it. Charlotte, they're going for it. Toronto has the number 4 pick. We'll see what happens with Kyle Lowry. But you don't look at the East as like, it's just a cakewalk for the Pacers, as talented as they are. And they are talented. And Rick Carlisle is a great coach. It's not like a no-brainer for them to be in the playoffs next year.
Yeah, I think, they're definitely going to have be more on the up and up this year, especially with Carlisle coming back. He's has his own history, different hairdo back in the day, but he definitely brought a lot of wins to the Pacers. But, I'm sure that the Indiana fans are going to be super excited. They do have a great fan base. They have some great talent, and they're just going to have to build around that guy right there. They're going to make sure that, they compete. And just like everyone says, if you're in the East, you have a little bit better of a shot. So they can probably put some things together. Look for them to be active in the trade market as well, because I believe they have some assets. And really just, lead. Rick Carlisle will lead them the way that a champion leads his team, and we'll see what happens for him.
I was trying to jog my memory. The George Steinbrenner, Billy Martin, right? Am I thinking of the coach, the manager that just kept coming back and coming back and coming back to the Yankees? That's what I think of when I see that old Rick Carlisle footage there. All right, what's that? Because I hear the coaching carousel still. Here it is, coming around again. Let's take a look at the vacancies still remaining. Still a handful, including for the Wizards after Scott Brooks' departure. Bradley Beal entering a contract year. That's important. Russ coming off a very strong second half of the season. So, Chris, how involved should the Wizards duo be in that coaching search? How involved should the Wizards involve these guys? Involved, like that.
Well, in any time. Right, it's a delicate subject sometimes. You kind of do have to, in my opinion, get some sort of direction from your players, because I think that the Wizards have what it takes to really compete for a championship. I don't think it's any question that with Russ and with Bradley that they have tremendous talent. I think they need a head coach to come in there and really perform right away. And you want their attitudes good coming into training camp. You want their confidence. And I think sometimes their recommendation and their voices, I think they should be heard. They can put themselves in a very strong position, really, like I said before, to compete for a championship. In my mind, they're right there.
If the Wizards front office is watching this and they just heard Chris Bosh say they can compete for a championship next year, they're like, whoa, next year? We're going to compete for a championship next year?
Does Chris want to come
but
play?
Look, the answer is Bradley Beal should be, particularly Bradley Beal. If you want to keep him, he should be as involved as he wants to be. Some stars, they don't really want to be a part of the coaching process. They don't want that to be on them if it goes badly. They don't want to feel like they're responsible for whatever happens afterwards. Some stars really want to be. Depending on what Bradley Beal wants, he should be as involved as he would like to be because he's that important to the Wizards organization. He's the franchise guy. He's the guy who's got one guaranteed year left on his deal, I believe. He's the one that they're dying to keep there long term. So whatever he wants, that's what they should do.
And look, to your point of some guys don't want that responsibility. If a guy does take that responsibility on, they're kind of invested in the choice then. And then if a few months down the road things aren't going great, management can say, well, you wanted this guy. Like, make it work. We can't just, throw out a new guy again. So I think that teams now are understanding why that investment is valuable. But again, Bradley Beal, contract year. Who knows what the Wizards are going to be doing at the middle point of next season as that trade deadline approaches, and whether Brad Beal will say what he has said many, many times, which is, I wanted to stay in D.C., I don't want to be traded, or if things change by then. There's a lot of teams around the league who would like to put Bradley Beal in their trade machines. So we will see. Zach, Chris, thank you so much for joining us. You will be back later in these playoffs coming up on The Jump tonight. But Zach, yesterday you had some reporting on Giannis. Please tell us what you know.
Yeah, he appears to have avoided serious knee injury. The ligaments appear mostly okay or totally okay. It's unclear now exactly what the condition of the knee is. They're being a little, as you can understand, secretive about the information, but they're very, very relieved inside the Bucks today that the worst has not happened. The knee appears structurally sound, and beyond that, we'll see about a timetable. But the number one emotion right now in Milwaukee is, relief.
All right. Well, Chris, you suffered a similar injury in your career. Yesterday, you weren't sure if Giannis would be back in these playoffs at all. Now that you've heard that there's no ligament damage, is there still anything about this particular injury that makes you be like, I don't know? What do you think?
Well, I mean, we just saw the highlight. It was a pretty incredible injury, and I'm so happy that he isn't seriously hurt. Mm-hmm. But one of the things that you have to deal with is those stretched ligaments. Mm-hmm. They might be bruised. They're probably not torn, but they might be bruised.
Yep.
And most of all, the bone bruising. That's one of the things that I had the most trouble with. It gives you the most pain because, as you can see, when he kind of hyperextends that knee, those two bones on the other side, on the sides of your kneecap, well, they bang together and they bruise. And so that's where you're going to get most of your pain. That's probably going to prohibit him from being able to be explosive and even get up and down the court.
What do you think? Look, I was going to ask Zach's opinion on that, but you have not had that knee injury, so I'm just going to go.
No.
Zach, given that and given sort of where they hang in the balance right now, is there a point where you feel like Giannis has to come back to make this a competitive series for the Bucks, or do you feel like if he cannot play the rest of this series, or maybe even beyond that, as Chris is concerned with, how far do you think the Bucks can go?
I think they can win this series without him, and that's different, Atlanta fans, than saying they will win this series without him. But the Hawks just proved last game you can lose your best player. All these other guys are good NBA players. They can step up. You can kind of take on a different look and ride that for a game or two. They still have Chris Middleton. They still have Drew Holiday. They have home court advantage. I would give them a better than 50-50 chance of winning the series, even if he doesn't come back. And we'll see what happens in terms of his injury. I mean, this is one of those things where he's in the prime of his career. Chris can tell you, you only get so many shots at it in your prime or ever in your career. But you can't jeopardize your long-term health, right?
Well, Chris had a stretch where he got a ton of shots at it, but that's a whole different subject. I want to get over to the Western Conference on their side. The Clippers lost last night, of course, and Marcus Morris said afterward he is confident Kawhi Leonard is coming back to L.A. next season. Chris, reminder here, Kawhi has an opt-out in his contract. It's a player option. Now, even if he exercises that option, it could just be to get a different contract. He could stay with the Clippers even if he exercises this option. Do you expect him to be back in that LA Clipper uniform next season?
I expect them to. They have a fantastic team. It's the reason why he was there. They orchestrated trying to put this team together, and you don't just give up after 2 years. And I'm sure Kawhi feels, as Paul George said last night, they have supreme confidence that if he would have been healthy, they would be going to the hopefully to the finals right now. But, I think with the pieces that they have, bringing Kawhi back, having Morris, having playoff P, I think, you give yourself the best chance just coming back, running it back, making sure you get that team as best as, in a better position, hopefully pick up a couple pieces, maybe a couple second-round draft picks, and run it back. I mean, they were so close, but just more importantly, just to see, for everyone to see Paul George elevate his game to what we thought and what we know he can do. I'm sure that's pretty promising for the organization. I'm pretty sure it's promising for Kawhi. And hey, let's be frank, we can look at other teams, but they have a pretty good situation going there. You run it back.
Zach?
Yeah, I mean, look, I'll say this. I mean, I'll try to prove a positive by stating a negative. I haven't heard one thing of concern or indication that Kawhi Leonard is leaving LA. Now, it's not like I'm tied into Kawhi's camp, but from any team in the league, I have not heard an iota of worry, anxiety that he's leaving the Clippers. And I agree with Chris. The Clippers, look, they didn't make the finals, but they at least quieted the noise. Next season, there's not going to be this drumbeat of what if they fail? What if they fail? What if Paul George fails? What if we get way off P and pandemic P again? They got to the conference finals. They didn't win, but they got there. And they got there in tough fashion, winning twice against Utah without Kawhi. I think they could go into next season with a cleaner slate, a calmer environment around them, and say, you know what? We might have it. We found something in Terrence Mann, and we might get Ibaka back if we resign him. We'll see what happens with Jackson and Batum. But we've got something going here. We can kind of go into it with a little bit of more calm around us.
I would expect Reggie Jackson to stay in that Clippers uniform. He had a great quote last night. He said he walked into the locker room and told the guys, "Thank you for saving me." It just really emotional there. You could see he had been crying from